guys, been a little bit since I cast. I needed a bit of a break from StarCraft in general, but I kind of just what's the word? I don't know. I tried my best not to make sure that it was something like previously where I just rage quit the game and I come back 2 months later. Tried to at least come back with a kind of fresh mindset in a pretty good time. I'm trying to more and more understand how this game affects, players mentally, because for whatever reason, it has a psychological effect on people that no other game can match. And I guess my initial interest was because of coaching, because so often I coach people, and I can really tell when they're on tilt, and I can definitely tell when they've just had a really harsh mindset for the last week since I last worked with them. But then also for myself, because anyone who's been following me knows that I have this cycle. I'll come back after a nice long break, nice and fresh. I'll be having a lot of fun, and I'll play really well. Like this last time I came back from a long break, I was hitting 80% pretty consistently. Got Grandmaster on Heart of the Swarm beta, when there was actually more competition for it rather than less compared to North America, and just had a great time. Start tilting a little bit, do that times a few days, and all of a sudden I am playing really poorly, dropping under 60%, which for me these days I try to stay above that. And then just recently I played about 20 games in a day, and I lost, I think, 17 of them. I had 3 or 4 wins at the end of that day, and my win rate's still atrocious this season because of it. So I'm starting to kind of try and figure out what it's going to take for that to not be the case. Definitely it's tied to how many games I played. It's also tied to how I approach my mindset when I go into the day. If I'm playing like, oh, I promised people I was going to stream, I don't want to let them down, let's go ahead and stream, I'll play a bunch of games and whatever, who cares, then I'm going to probably lose a lot and not have much fun. Vice versa, if I go into it with, well, I actually feel like playing today, so let's go ahead and stream, then I hands down play a lot better. Anyways, total tangent, sorry. I promised someone, I can't remember who it was, I had someone requesting just over and over and over that I cast as EVZ. I've been avoiding them because people get pretty bored by them, but this one was pretty interesting, so I'm going to cast it. This is an 11 overpool, 12 gas. This is my standard build on ZVZ, all maps. I've found it's very stable opening because it allows you to apply a bunch of pressure. You're going to drone up to 15. You're not going to hit the second extractor trick like you would on ZVP, but since you grabbed that gas, your larva timing is going to work out well anyways. So what happens here is the 2 lings allow me a scout. They also make me very safe against 6 to 10 pool. In fact, I would say, unless I make a huge misstep, you pretty much just straight up win against 6 to 10 pool, which is nice, because I'd still, even at High Master and Grandmaster, that's 5 to 10% of your games. So to auto-win 5 to 10% of your games, that's a pretty good advantage on your win rate. Now, there's an important decision to make when your Zergling arrives, which is you check the gas, and you say, do I want to commit to aggression, or do I want my first larva inject to be drones? Because that first larva inject is really critical. You need to capitalize on it, because that's what 11 overpool is providing you over your opponent. So if that's drones, then great. You just got a macro advantage over 14-14. I compare it against 14-14 because that's probably the most comparable build in terms of metabolic timing. It breaks even with hatch first, typically, if you apply a little bit of pressure, but with just 6 to 8 lings. If you see very late gas, and you don't see a spine yet, then you can commit to a little bit of aggression, and here we go. So notice what this is doing. I'm not going to kill him outright. I mean, I might. That would be great, but especially with these 2 queens coming down, even though I catch him out of position, he's killing off enough of these Zerglings that with drones he's going to be able to go ahead and hold. So I know that. I go ahead and decide, you know what, let's just go ahead and do as much damage as we can. Now, I maybe could have gone in and done a little bit of damage at his drones, but keep in mind with these Zerglings, if he micros really well, I don't want to risk him getting a surround, and then I lose this advantage that I currently have. So that's why I kind of just hang out outside and oftentimes try and just clean up the Zerglings as they're spawning, unless I really have a decisive cleanup. Now back at home, I'm droning this entire time, so this is really telling. I only killed 2 to 3 drones, but I killed 3 queens, and I'm 4 drones up. So that's great, and I've still been producing a lot of Zerglings because I did enough damage that I felt comfortable committing to a little added aggression. Now these roaches were completely out of left field, and actually that was such a great choice on his part. I mean, on this map, I just would have never even guessed it, but there you have it. So that actually kept him in the game. Had he not had those roaches and he was instead going for metabolic, he just physically would not be able to hold against the Baneling Speedling follow-up. This, bit of a whoops on my part. Just me back at home trying to make sure I'm ready. I read a Roach Ling all in, but I actually misread him. If we take a look at this, he's actually... we'll switch this over so I don't get confused by the colors. He's actually 8 drones up on me right now. More and more drones up on me. So what I read there was a Roach Ling all in because I was just like, why in the world would he go so roach heavy if not for a Roach Ling all in? And in fact, what he was doing was just somehow directly build countering my follow-up to get himself back in the game. And really, really well played on his part. Because that means he had to have started that Roach Warren well before my initial aggression even started. Actually, I'm kind of curious. I'm going to bounce back real quick, because this is actually only the second time I've watched this game. So let's find out when he actually... Yeah, because his gas timing actually is very smart for a Roach build. Yeah, there's the Roach Warren, and then there's my aggression. So he actually started the Roach Warren before he knew these Lings were coming. So this is just a build I guess he's probably going to do a lot on this map for whatever reason. I have no idea why, because roaches take forever to cross this. Alright, we're slowing down again. There we go. If my cast is really frantic, it's because according to my coffee maker, I've had 6 cups of coffee today. I'm only counting it as 1.5 though, because my thermos is a 4-cup thermos. So I've had 1.5 4-cup thermoses worth of coffee. Yes, I like that better. That sounds healthier. Okay, so at this point he's attacking, but I really already kind of know that this definitely is not an all-in. I didn't do enough damage for it to be, but I'm feeling pretty comfy that I just need to survive to the 1-1. So here comes the spines, more for a few banelings just to keep his roaches split. I do find banelings are still very helpful against roach-based play, because if he doesn't split them up, they actually do pretty well still. And so here we go, getting a little surround to keep him from splitting too much, and there we go, made good contact. And even before my 1-1 finish, these Lings are going to clean up healthily. I'm just a little bit ahead on drones. I pulled ahead as he was moving out. So I'm in a great spot right now. Really because he moved out. Had he hung back and played it safe, he could have just kept the drone lead right into layer tech, and he would have been a very happy camper. Let's switch back over to production here. So we see my attack is finished, my carapace is finished. Carapace won't be impactful until that +1 is done. Now, at this point, I kind of remember where my thinking was. I thought, given how many roaches I saw at the front door, he maybe actually was a little more behind than I actually perceived. I thought he was lower on drones than he was. Now this float is something I really need to keep more and more of an eye on. I found when I go into 1-1, my minerals get really, really high. So that indicates that this third actually needs to be much sooner. Now I took it the moment I broke free, so that's all well and good here, but then that means I could have actually had a macro hatch started, and in the case of 1-1 Ling, that's going to really help quite a bit actually. Because if that's 700 minerals worth of drones or Lings, either one, I'm in a great spot. Either I'm able to play much more aggressively, or I'm able to out-macro him that much more heavily. Nevertheless, I've got a really nice window of opportunity here. I saw that he had dropped down an Evo chamber to help block off that ramp, and that means I know when his upgrade timings are, and I know how long I'll be +1 melee versus 0 carapace, which is really the important timing here. So he splits pretty well here, but nevertheless I'm going to get in and do some damage here. Now, I make a decision here that is kind of interesting. I'm not sure if it was good or bad. Banelings get in, they connect with about 6 drones. I like that. That's good enough. So I could be over there wrecking the mineral line right now, but instead I opt to shut down his upgrades. Now, was that the right choice? I don't know. I feel like it was probably pretty good, because I was already, if we look at economy, I was already ahead on economy. So if I'm able to keep my upgrade advantage, and better yet, extend it by a +2 melee here momentarily, then we're going to see a period of time where I'm 2-1 Lings versus 0-0 roaches, which is pretty damn cool. So I think that probably was the right choice, but I don't know. I would have to see a game play out with where I went for his drones instead to really know for certain. But I always think that's kind of an interesting choice if you see a Evo Chamber wall, because you generally know what the timing is on their upgrades, so you know you're going to be able to cancel it, as long as you scouted when the Evo Chambers went down. Alright, so here's where things get fun. I've seen a lot of roaches, and I know he's going to be behind on upgrades for a little bit. So I go ahead and grab an infestation pit. And I typically say if I've committed to 1-1 laying, then I may not want to go into swarm hosts until I've had time to get my missile attack caught up. So generally about +2, when +2 is about ready to finish, I would drop my infestation pit. Instead, this game I said, given that I canceled those Evo chambers, let's go for it, see what happens. And actually it felt really, really good, really resilient. So I'm going to probably give this more and more work, and I may even try some more defensive play and just say, you know what, if I can survive to 3 base with swarm hosts, how do my games play out from there? Do I win consistently even if they went mutas and set me back a little bit? So, because this game I came into this, way ahead. I'm ahead on upgrades, I'm ahead on economy. But I wonder what it would be like if, and we see here, if he went mutas, but he went mutas a couple or 3 minutes earlier because I didn't set him back so much. Can I still go infestors or swarm hosts safely, especially given the new 45 damage spores that have been confirmed to be released? I would say probably, yeah, because I'm going 1-1 Ling to deny his third, and I don't really have to do damage back at his base. Anyways, pulling back, I was going to go ahead and hit some more Baneling timing here when my centrifugal hook's finished. However, once I saw that Spire, I said, okay, I'd rather keep these Banelings back for defense. I know more than likely he's still going to get some ground army so that he can challenge my 1-1 Speedlings, since mutas don't do very well against those. So the Banelings will really help keep this third alive. Since right now I'm a base up, I don't necessarily need to be too heavy on drones. I'm not droning up to 80 notice. Since I'm already on 3 base and ZVZ is such a volatile matchup, you overmake by 5 to 10 drones and that can cause you to lose to a push. I felt it was better just have a little better mining efficiency, but not push it to the point that I'm maxing out these bases. Alright, so the spores finished just in time. If these were 45 damage spores, I would think this probably would mean he completely cuts mutas altogether at this point. And that's where I really wonder if anyone's even going to go mutas if 45 damage spores go live. A lot of people say, oh, that won't be very impactful, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Swarm Host versus Swarm Host a lot in ZVZ once 45 damage spores go live, because Swarm Host Spore Push would be so good. I don't know what could really stop it, honestly, against a muta player. Alright, so I've got enough queens now, especially with where I'm now 1-1 on them, that I'm starting to feel like I can start pushing out. Now notice I haven't made any Swarm Hosts yet until just now, because I want to gauge his muta count, and when I realize he's going to continue committing to mutas, that's when I say, okay, I'm just going to sprinkle in Swarm Hosts. So notice I made 3 Swarm Hosts, and then 7 Hydras. Ooh, not watching. Ooh. So I made 3 Swarm Hosts, 7 Hydras. I may mix in a few more Swarm Hosts later because I've recognized that my opponent is actually going to stick around on the mutas. Now this is something I've got to be more cautious of. I do hit some transfusions, so this goes a little better than it would have had I not recognized it. But I've lost 3 or 4 queens at this point to him sniping these. And I think this is something that I can easily avoid just by having my Hydras on a follow command on one of my queens. Because then all it's going to take is just switching that over to an attack move the moment I see his mutas in range, and he's going to basically just have all of his mutas explode. So I probably won't even have opponents engaging my Hydra Queen at that point because they'll see so many Hydras. Last minute transfuse there to keep that alive. Believe it or not, these Swarm Hosts actually do something really important. What they're doing is they're gradually pinning his mutas back. So more and more he's going to be in a place where he needs those mutas to hang back to try and bolster his defense against the locusts. Roaches are never going to do well at trading with locusts because they're only 4 range. So he can have a whole bunch of roaches, and he's still very gradually going to be losing some roaches unless he starts burrow microing around it. So that's going to be all well and good if he starts doing that, but then he's having to micro much harder than I am because my locusts are basically just attack moving while his roaches are having to be constantly microed to stay alive. So I feel like this is a case where we're going to probably see Swarm Hosts used as a soft counter to mutas, believe it or not, as long as they're escorted. Just because at that point it's very much like going against a Phoenix using Protoss. You pin down their air, because they're going to go Phoenix, and then they're going to feel obligated to go into Void Rays because they made the Stargates. And then at that point, the Void Rays have to hang back and can't actually damage buildings like they would like to be. Alright, so he's keeping me back quite well, actually. He's just kind of trying to dance around and actually use my Swarm Host pathing against me. So the mutas go where the locusts go, the roaches go where the mutas, or where the locusts are not. And that's really good, because then that means he's able to once in a while snipe a Swarm Host. So actually I feel like as well as he could have, he did this as well as he could have. Man, that coffee's really kicking it. But it still means that he's stuck with kind of a losing battle over the long game, especially with the upgrade advantage that I have. Now again, I really want to see this in a game where I played passively, my opponent played passively, and we just both go in with equal footing, rather than a game where I came into it ahead by some of the aggression that I typically like to hit. So I'm going to more and more test this and just see if maybe it's just a viable long game, given that we're going to have 45 damage spores. I'd rather just go ahead and prepare for that. Alright, so he finally decides, you know what, this is a losing battle, I've got to engage. And Locust Hydra does exceptionally well, so there we have it. Hit a few transfusions, and he's cleaned up. So I don't yet know if I'm ready to call this the ZVZ of the future. I really feel like it could be with 45 damage spores, though. I just don't see much run-by potential for the mutas, because that's always what's been really troublesome. Look how many spores I had to commit to here, even with 30 damage spores. 5 spores per base. You know, that one was really under. He actually could easily snipe that. And my main has 3 spores, 4, 5. A couple out of position there. So imagine if it's just 2 to 3 spores per base, maybe even just 2, maybe just 1 at each mineral line, and then you consolidate your tech structures around them. Could be pretty cool. Because I don't really see a muta player willingly trading with spores anytime soon. Once they're doing 45 damage, they're 3-shotting a muta, even with passive regen. So, pretty snazzy. Okay, so that's it for this. Let me know if you like ZVZ or not. I find it to be a really boring matchup, but at the same time, if I'm able to keep playing outside of the metagame and keeping a good 55 to 60% win rate, then, you know, maybe it can be a little more interesting. It's just the early game that's so boring. Okay, so that's it. Thanks a bunch for watching, guys.